In the last section, we created two separate iterators, the team iterator, which was for the engineering team, and the testing team iterator, which was for the testing team. And we linked them together using generator delegation. This linking right here causes our for of loop to walk through both different teams. Now this is definitely a good solution, but the only issue with this code right now is that our iterator functions are completely separate from the objects that represent our teams. In addition, when we want to use one, we have to first call the iterator itself and then pass in the team that we're trying to iterate over. In this section, we're going to talk about another ES6 feature called the Symbol Iterator that will help us clean up our code here. And it's specifically going to help us clean up our code by kind of merging this object, this iterator, directly into our team object. So we won't have to ahead of time call like team iterator and then pass in the team we're trying to talk about here. So before we start doing any refactoring, let me give you a plain English definition. Symbol Iterator is a tool that teaches objects how to respond to the for of loop. So just like the yield star syntax that we saw in the last section, symbol.iterator is going to be another piece of certainly weird syntax. Okay, I can tell you that right now. We're going to first apply it to the testing team up at the top, and then we're going to refactor the engineering team as well. So we're going to do this in two different steps. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I again want to point out that we have a testing team object and an engineering team object separately, just because it makes more sense. It would make a lot more sense for the purposes of this exercise at least, if the testing team itself had the ability or the idea of how to iterate over itself. So in other words, I don't want to have a separate function to exist just so I can iterate over the testing team. So to solve this, I'm going to add a bit of code to tell the testing team how it should behave when someone tries to use a for of loop on it. So like many other topics in this section, we'll first write some code and then talk about exactly what's going on. So I'm going to add another key value pair here. I'm going to use square brackets, symbol.iterator, then function star, and then inside of here, we'll put our generator function, yield this.lead and yield this.tester. Now, I know that this syntax is strange here, so bear with me for just a minute. We're going to change one other thing in here. Down inside of our team iterator, rather than using this testing team iterator blah, blah, blah stuff down here, I'm going to take out this entire line. And instead, we're going to do a yield star over team.testing team. And now it appears that our code still works. So I've still got Jill, Alex, Dave, Amanda, and Bill. But my gosh, why? Just like everything else with generators, why does this work? Let's do one more quick piece of cleanup here. We don't need this testing team iterator anymore, so I'm just going to delete this as well. Okay, so now let's talk about exactly what's going on. First off, let's start at the team iterator. So this is still doing the exact same thing as before. We are yielding the team's leader, manager, engineer, and then we want to yield everything about the testing team. And so we want our for of loop that we're currently using to iterate over the team itself, just the engineering team. I need to say engineering team. I keep on saying team, but I need to say engineering team. So we're using this iterator to walk over the engineering team. The yield star is going to cause the for of loop to kind of fall into iteration over team.testing team. So now we're essentially trying to say, hey, for of loop, I want you to go and just do your best, like as best as you can, to iterate over testing team. That's what we're telling you right here. So then the for of loop is going to look at testing team. It is going to look for a key. It's going to look for a key of symbol.iterator. If this object has a key of symbol.iterator, it will use the generator that it's pointing at to use for iteration. Okay, so that's kind of the crux of what we're doing here. We are using this symbol.iterator key to tell a for of loop how to iterate over this object. Now let's talk a little bit more about the syntax here in particular. First off, the key side of things. So this is a completely valid ES6 key right here. with ES6, we can use what is called key interpolation. And so if we want to kind of have a dynamically generated key, we can wrap it with curly braces like so. So these curly braces are not forming an array. We can read this entire key right here. This entire thing is just being a completely normal key, just the same as lead and tester are. Then the value to it is our generator function. And we specify that it is a generator specifically by using function star and then the rest of the stuff that forms our generator. So again, the purpose of symbol.iterator is to teach a for-of loop how it should iterate over this object. If we wanted, we could also put in any other arbitrary values in here that we so chose. We could yield 5, and we could yield this. And so now we've got the entire team on there as well. It is also important to notice that I changed the yield statement specifically to say this.lead and this.tester, because now that we are sitting on this is a method on the testing team object, this is a reference to the testing team. And that's why we're able to say basically testing team dot Amanda, testing team dot lead and testing team dot tester, which gives us Amanda and Bill. Okay, so this is looking kind of reasonable so far. It's definitely cleaned up our code because we don't have to have that separate iterator function just for working with the testing team. This has been some pretty nasty stuff, so let's continue in the next section and also refactor our engineering team to use the symbol iterator as well.